And TGIF, everyone. Welcome into the First Call Podcast. Express Bet and First Bet representing here. He is Scott Shapiro. I am riding shotgun, Jeremy Plonk here, as we are going to handicap 8 stakes races on a big Kentucky Derby prep weekend, opening weekend at Keeneland. Shap, it's officially spring now.
It is spring, and it really does feel that way as we hit Easter. Keeneland gets going. Santa Anita, Aqueduct kind of come to a slower, different point, a changing point for Santa Anita. The last Wood at Aqueduct. So a lot of big things happening in terms of the calendar, and the most important of them related to the Kentucky Derby. So looking forward to that. I did want to give a shout out. I had I was on with Felix Taverna, our old buddy, was on his podcast the other day, and he said one of his buddies, Drew from the OC, a regular listener, and always listens to us. Thinks it's one of the best things he listens to all week. So shout out to you, Drew. Thanks for checking in always.
Yeah, always good to hear Felix too.
Good
one
guy.
Of the good guys in the game on the West Coast. Felix Taverna. All right, let's talk some handicapping this weekend. Opening day at Keeneland today. Again, as we drop our podcast on Friday, this will air right before the beginning of the card at Keeneland, where it is Ashland Day on opening day. We're going to look at races for Saturday only. So for the benefit of those of you on our audio podcast channels, here are the 8 races Scott and I are going to handicap over the next half hour or so. We're going to start out at Keeneland on Saturday with the Madison, the Shakertown, and the Bluegrass. 5 stakes races wrap up the card. The final 3 of them, big time races. We will handicap the final 3 on the card, which is part of the new $3 late pick 3 at Keeneland, starting there with the Madison Stakes. To Aqueduct will go on Saturday for the Wood Memorial feature race there on a big card at the Big A. Final Wood Memorial ever held at Aqueduct Racetrack. And at Santa Anita on Santa Anita Derby Day. 4 stakes races in our crosshairs, starting with the Echo Eddie Stakes, the Santa Anita Oaks, the Santa Anita Derby, and the Monrovia. Some stars coming out to shine at Santa Anita on Saturday. And if you're playing with Express Bet and First Bet this weekend, definitely hone in on the late pick 4s at Santa Anita and Keeneland on Saturday, where we've got a $5,000 hit and split. $2,500 at Santa Anita, $2,500 at Keeneland. If you take down the late pick 4, you get not only your pari-mutuel earnings, but you'll share in $2,500 at each track with just other players on the platform who hit the late pick 4. Be sure to check that out. And of course, when you're betting with First Bet and Express Bet, you know this if you've been listening all season long during the Kentucky Derby preps. You get a $10 money back special on the Kentucky Derby prep races. If your win bet finishes second or third in this weekend's Santa Anita Derby, Bluegrass, or Wood Memorial, you get up to $10 back in your account and wagering credits if your horse finishes second or third. So a little extra insurance to play with. Shap and I are going to make sure you don't need any of that for the Triple Crown prep races. We've got them dialed in and locked in this weekend. For those of you watching on X and on YouTube, be sure to smash that like button. Put some comments in the comment section. Tell us who you like on these races. Take umbrage with who we are picking in our selections. Let's go to Keeneland on Saturday now. Shap, race number 9 on the card, the Madison Stakes, 7 furlong, grade 1 here at Keeneland. And in this particular spot, this is a race where a field of 8 has entered. To me, it looks like there is a lot of early heat.
That's exactly the way I saw it, because on the surface, Grand Job would be, a horse that would be tough to get by here after just a huge effort. Really has done very little wrong outside of the effort down on the rail at Churchill at the end of last year. And I think she would be a tough customer in here, but she's like you said, I mean, she's speed and she's the inside speed. And a lot of times at Keeneland, the rail could be good, but when I'm in a battle at certain tracks, I just would rather be kind of stalking a little bit on the outside than being down on the rail. That might not be the case at Keeneland tomorrow, but I'm going to play it as if that's probably going to work against Grand Job with Mystic Late and Our Disaster pressing throughout.
Yeah,
I'm going to take a swing and 20-1 shot with Praying. This is a filly that never really gets bet, and I'm going to go back to her because she's been good to me. I know she's taking on older, but she does have the experience against older. A lot of 4-year-olds taking on older for the first time in their first start as a 4-year-old. Not the case with this daughter of Vacoma. She loves it here at Keeneland. We're going to take a look back at a win when she was almost 10-1. I think she's going to get a really good trip here under Joelle Rosario, which will break well. Joelle will be very happy to kind of strangle her back, and I think that could work out.
The Vacomas have an unbelievable record over the main track at Keeneland. They got off to that fast start with that 2-year-old crop, and they've held up pretty well. One of those wins was this filly last year in the TCA at nearly 10-1 odds.
Top of the stretch. Vava's second. Helena's Forte third to the inside. Vodka with a twist. Then Praying is up toward the outside. Vodka with a twist has to swing out toward the center of the track. Long Neck Paula the leader. Here's Praying coming from the outside, and Vava in between that pair. And then Vodka with a twist, still center of the racetrack and still fourth. Final furlong of the Thoroughbred Club of America. Here's Praying to poke ahead in front. Vava's fighting on, but she's second. Praying to the wire. John Velasquez, third win on the card. Praying has won the Thoroughbred Club of America. Vava was across the line in second.
Good win there, beating Vava. When you beat her, you've done something. We'll see her back here Praying at Keeneland, trying to get that fall spring sweep. Another filly who ran during the fall meet at Keeneland and ran pretty well, third in the Raven Run Stakes, was Ragtime. I really like her coming off the bench in this particular spot for Bill Mott. You and I know we espouse the brisk late pace figures. We love them, especially in races that look like they're going to set up for a closer. How's this sound to you? 101, 104, 103, 101, 108. Pretty good late pace figures for Ragtime. And I think if she fires late again off the bench for Bill Mott, I think she's got a big time shot in this spot. 6 horses in this race got an early pace figure of 100 or better last time out. I mean, I think they're going to cook in here, and I think Ragtime from off the pace has got a big shot in here. And horses coming from, off the layoff, they have success in these Keeneland Spring Stakes. We see them make the first start of the year successfully here, aiming for these kind of races.
Ragtime is obviously going to get a good setup here. She obviously, or not obviously, but she leaves herself with a lot to do in the past. We'll see. Maybe she's learned a little. Maybe she's more keen. She's getting older, or she'll be keen like many horses off the break. It could benefit her to an extent in here, but she's the one that could be making the last run. We'll see if the Keeneland main track was favorable to that, because it does look like the race shape will be.
I stole your jockey in there. I got John Velasquez off of Praying, so maybe me and Johnny V will take you down
Johnny
there.
These days, I feel like when I'm trying to beat him in the lane, or when I have him in the lane, I feel good. I don't know. Sometimes
let's go to the Shakertown race number 10. If you like that 9th race, again, late pick 3 at Keeneland, now a $3 minimum. So I think it's a great wager to $3 minimum pick 3. Races 9, 10, and 11 on this Bluegrass Day card on Saturday. So to the 10th we go, the Shakertown Stakes, grade 2, 5.5 furlongs. Love post positions in these races. If you can catch a horse in the 3, 4, 5 post in full fields, really strong statistical edge in these races at Keeneland. I didn't land on any of those as my top pick. I think Yellow Card's the best of the horses in those particular posts. Scott, I went to the 9 in here, No Nay Hudson. It's Rosario, it's Ward, a horse who's won over the course, and those two just team up so well in the turf sprints here at Keeneland. I'm going to go with the 9, No Nay Hudson, who's got a history over the track with a win here during the spring meet last year. Who'd you end up with?
Well, I have a history of getting beat by Ward at Keeneland, so that's
Let's hope it happens again then if you're picking against my horse.
I wanted to make a case for Yellow Card. This horse has been good to me. I bet him.
Yep.
I mean, my biggest win bet of the year last time. I also bet him to win at a bigger price the time before, and he got in trouble. But I couldn't. I think this is a different type of race than the ones he's out there. I could totally see No Nay Hudson. Big price too, at least based on the morning line. I went with a little more figure horse. Hopefully the far outside doesn't hurt this horse's chances. A lot of times in these turf sprints, it can work out well, but sometimes it can in other tracks, it doesn't. And I think Usually Wrong has the tactical speed to just kind of work out his own trip now. I like the fact that he has races at other turf courses and fairgrounds, because that can play goofy. And he has oftentimes I don't know if I'll fade them automatically, but I will take it into account. But he's got wins at 4 different turf courses at this point. He likes running on the turf and sprinting. It looks like Robertino Diodoro ran him in 4 straight, opted to give him a little bit of time and point to this spot. He should be tough to beat with a good trip.
He's won 9 of 12. And in turf sprints, that just doesn't happen. You've got good form. You've got a horse who's ready to step up into this kind of class of runner. And 2 starts back set the course record at Fairgrounds.
Now converge on the quarter pole. And in between horses, Mondo gets buckets. Can't deny it, straightened away in 6th. It's Usually Wrong who leads with the rail down to this final furlong. Usually Wrong has 3 lengths to protect. From Mondo gets buckets and Bear River they pursue. Wendelson 4th, but hard pressed with the rail. Then comes Schwarzmeyer next with Petkoff mounting a late charge, but well inside the final 16th with Isaac Castillo. It's Usually Wrong all the way in the Duncan F. Kenner Stakes. From Mondo gets buckets with Bear River.
You don't win 9 out of 12 turf sprinting often, and you don't win by daylight that often in turf sprints. Expect a tight finish in this one, race number 10, the Shaker Town. We go to the 11th on the card, anchoring the action on Saturday at Keeneland. It is the Grade 1 Toyota Bluegrass, 1 mile and an eighth. We started with a field of 9, but Oselli, the 7, is going to scratch in here to run in the Wood Memorial. Talk about him in just a bit. And class president scratched yesterday. Trainer Todd Pletcher said he was off and will not make the Bluegrass Stakes. No word on whether or not he will be back for the Kentucky Derby, but time is ticking right now. Class president, of course, winner of the Rebel Stakes, getting 50 points, and that probably will be plenty enough to get him into the field for the Kentucky Derby. So class president, maybe still a Derby horse, but he's not a Bluegrass horse, Scott, and that reduces this field down to a field of 7. And to me, it really comes down to 2. If somebody beyond the big 2 in this race wins, I think it'll be a pretty hefty surprise in here. Reagan's Honor from Fairgrounds, Further Ado coming off the race in the Tampa Bay Derby. Further Ado, of course, last year at Keeneland, stamped himself as a where'd that come from candidate in his 3rd career start.
And in the meantime, Further Ado is kicking on into the final furlong. 8 lengths to the good. Vino Vici, a distant second now to Brave Force in 3rd. It is Further Ado well in front of the field. Iran Ortiz Jr., Further Ado wins it. It was Vino Vici who was across the line in the second.
20-length margin. You don't see that often anywhere. You don't see it at Keeneland, and you don't see it with maiden specials in a high-quality kind of race. Maybe in some starter allowance where there's a big mismatch, you get those kind of margins. That was a freakish performance. He backed it up somewhat, I would say, in winning the next start as he rose in class and won the Grade 2 Kentucky Jockey Club, but not as in such sensational fashion. The comeback race was decent in the Tampa Bay Derby for Further Ado. He's Nick Tamaro's 8-5 morning line favorite. That price is going to get shorter with the scratch of class president. What do you make of Further Ado? Is he the horse who won by 20? Is he the horse who was just okay in the Kentucky Jockey Club and Tampa Bay Derby and solid? Where does he rank in your mind? And is this a prove it race?
Well, it's always a fear to me, as you know, about talking to me a lot, and those that listen to me, when horses run super big one time, that they're never at a young age, that they're never going to recover from that. And you won the Kentucky Jockey Club, but like you said, it was a regression. I think that was pretty obvious. But what was not obvious was that he was going to continue to race at the level that he did in the Kentucky Jockey Club, not the maiden special weight as a 3-year-old. And that is the version we saw based on my eye and based on the data, all the metrics to support that, whatever one you follow. So whether you're not a numbers guy, at least all of them support that. So to me, and I thought he got the better trip. I mean, I don't think those other horses, the Puma, and obviously the Puma is a good horse, so he can win this race. I just prefer a horse that I think is more on the come, if you will, that I almost know, and maybe I'm wrong, but maybe I almost know has a better race in his future to come.
And that's Reagan's Honor. Reagan's Honor's had the 3 career starts, decent debut at Fairgrounds Sprinting, then a really nice maiden win, hard-fought maiden win in January. And this was his breakout race. This was the welcome to the party. Took on older allowance horses in the middle of February the 19th, and he just dusted them on the front end.
Coming toward the quarter pole, Reagan's Honor. And then comes Puck to Phantom and You Belong Here as they straighten away past the quarter pole. And with Jose Ortiz, Reagan's Honor charges now with the wind in his sails. 3/4, 1 minute 11.55 seconds. Reagan's Honor a furlong away from finishing them off and has a 4-length buffer zone over Favorite Day, second Gamely. Vamos Carlitos is third at that 1 pace. Proctor Phantom fourth, well clear. It's Reagan's Honor. Reagan's Honor, a sharp all-the-way winner by 6. Favorite Day was second, Vamos Carlitos third, and Proctor Phantom finished fourth.
Scott, that's a tough combination. Fastest early and fastest late. 98 brisk late pace figure for a horse who figures to get the lead in here. He's got the best late pace figure in the field, and unless Creole Chrome gets in front of him, who breaks outside of him here and is able to cross his face, he's going to be to the front in this particular spot, Reagan's Honor, and the best late in a race traditionally. Now, I know the last couple winners of this race have come from off the pace, Sierra Leone and company, last year with Burnham Square. But you want to be near the front in the Bluegrass typically, and at Keeneland. I think Reagan's Honor is going to be best early and best late.
I hope he has the pace the way you see it. I guess that's the question. I mean, on paper now, without class president to his inside, who was going to probably at least make him work. Johnny V always gets his horse out in position, especially uses the inside. to his advantage. I would think Creole Cream has one way to go, but I don't think he's fast enough, right? I mean,
right. But not only fast enough, but he's got to cross him yet. So he's got to really go because he's directly to the outside.
Reagan's on his side, right? I think in their eyes,
I mean, he's going to need to put the pedal down to cross over this horse going,
I wouldn't think that would be what they would want to do here. They don't want to, if Creole, they'd be more than happy with Creole Cream to get third in a graded stake race as a Louisiana bred. They don't want to commit, they don't want to go at it with one of the best horses on the front end. I can't imagine unless the horse doesn't relax. So they're probably going to line up Reagan's Honor and then, Creole Cream and Further Ado stalking, right?
That seems in talking down on the rail, maybe somewhere sitting in that second flight under a more patient Rosario. I don't think he's going to go bustling out of there. Ottenho to the outside, a horse without any speed for Chad Brown. Of course, Brown's won this race 3 times since 2018, but those were names like Good Magic, Zandon, and Sierra Leone. Ottenho hasn't done that to this point. He's only 1 for 3 with a distant third in the Withers. We'll see that race in a little bit when we talk about the Wood Memorial. Last year, Chancer McPatrick was the favorite and ran last in this race for Chad Brown. When he's got a good horse, he's, tough in this race in the Bluegrass, but I don't think Ottenho competes in this particular spot. They left the Wood to run here. Brown has another to run in the Wood. So I don't know it's necessarily a confidence move by bringing Ottenho here. It's separating his charges.
Right. He lost the one that he was confident in here.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So this is just calling an audible. I'm sure maybe Todd Pletcher might have done the same thing with the horse if he had new class president wasn't going to be here for a few weeks, but who knows? But the one horse I'll bring up before we move on that is a little interesting to me is Great White. I mean, we talked about it, Talking might be exposed. Maybe he has another rate, maybe second off the layoff. I think Moonstrosity is kind of a couple low. Creole Cream we discussed, and Ottenho has to prove himself to me. Bailey Armour does like this horse, our colleague on my horse sense colleague. But I think Great White has a chance to be a decent price, and be underneath in the exacta here, just kind of to save ground and maybe outfinish the rest of them. But and hopefully, and I'm going to play the race 4-3 exacta cold and 4-6-3 cold try. That's how I'm going to play the race.
I'm in the same boat. I've got Great White pick third. That's the horse who's going to split the exact if you're going to get any value at all in this race, right? 4-6 isn't going to pay anything. 6-4 isn't going to pay anything. Great White's the one you want to get in there in between. John Ennis was third in this race a couple years ago with a horse coming out of the same race at Turfway. They skipped the Jeff Ruby to come and run at Keeneland. Epic ride, and we're able to get to the Kentucky Derby through that path and running third in the Bluegrass. Would not be surprised if Great White's kind of in that same boat. He's going to need to do a little bit more in terms of points than running third in here. Second will get you into the Kentucky Derby, probably, unless one of the Reagan's Honor has no points. Great White doesn't have the points, no graded stakes in there amongst what he's done. I think he might have got a little bit in the Battaglia. That might be worth about 10 or something in the Kentucky Derby points, but. You're probably only going to get 2 horses out of the Bluegrass in the Kentucky Derby unless things work out.
Further Ado runs third. That would be the only exception. Yeah, Further Ado runs third. That's the only exception.
Right, and they want to move on at that point. So, been a great year for Brad Cox, especially late here. Of course, Commandment winning, full effort in the Jeff Ruby, Commandment winning down at Florida in the Florida Derby and at Gulfstream. Brad Cox got a good hand to play. He's got his one back with the Cannoneer. Ran a big allowance race. Not sure where he's going to end up. Maybe in the Pate Mile. But Brad Cox's 3-year-olds are humming right now. So if Further Ado runs a good race, won't be surprised. I just think he's going to give up a little bit tactically to a really good horse who's going to be good and late. We're both on Reagan's Honor in the Bluegrass Stakes. Let's change gears now from Keeneland, and we will switch venues to the Wood Memorial, an Aqueduct racetrack. Again, final year of racing at Aqueduct, the new Belmont Park slated to open in September. And so this will be the final Wood Memorial scheduled to rerun at the Ozone Park Oval. 1 1/8, 1 lap around at Aqueduct. Field of 13 entered. Ottenho, we just talked about, has scratched, obviously, or will scratch in favor of running in the race at Keeneland. So a dozen could be going here. A lot of big-name barns. You've got the Bafferts, you got the Pletchers, you got Saffie Joseph bringing some up from Florida. You got Bill Mott with a horse in here in Steel. But you don't have any big-name horses in here. Every once in a while, this race will come up where a good horse fits the spot, and they bring them through here for the Wood Memorial. But more often than not in recent years, it's kind of like this collection of horses either trying to get back on the wheel or, stepping up in class, or the Winter Warriors at Aqueduct. This is just kind of a hodgepodge of those kind of horses. A bunch of them off the board in recent stakes races for big barns are trying to recover here.
Indeed. I don't think it's a race that is likely to have much of an impact next month, the first Saturday in May, but it could have a big impact on my wallet the first Saturday in April, because I do like it from a betting perspective.
Good.
I don't know how you feel. I don't know if we wanted to show Talk to Me Jimmy's effort first, and where he was loose on the lead and the withers. My point will be that as good as he ran that day, I think it's going to be a whole lot different for him up front.
On for the back, but can Talk to Me Jimmy keep this going? A quarter mile left to go. Talk to Me Jimmy reaches the top of the stretch. Schoolyard Superman is trying to pick up this leader who's sprinting clear. It's Talk to Me Jimmy. Still Schoolyard Superman battling on grittiness, but with a furlong left to go. Talk to Me Jimmy is just opening up here. Talk to Me Jimmy. Ruben Silvera, they are going to dominate with a front-running score in the Withers.
I almost wanted to cut it mid-stretch. I mean, it's like rocking me to sleep. Nothing was happening in the race. He's just running up and down, going 39 seconds plus for the final 3 furlongs, and somehow opening up 11 lengths. The maiden grittiness was second. Ottenho, who we're going to see in the bluegrass, was a distant third. I don't know how the hell he's going to beat that bluegrass field getting trounced like that in the Withers, but Talk to Me, Jimmy. I mean, look, you can't argue with the last 2 win margins, 5.5 and then 11 lengths in there. Rudy Rodriguez got the money last time in the $200,000 Withers. I will be surprised if he can win this race. If he wins this race at 1 1/8 again, they ran 151 and 3. I mean, this is going to be a 152 kind of Wood Memorial if he's able to win it, and I just don't see it.
Well, the one thing that he'll do if he wins the race is make sure there's some speed in the Derby, because I don't see Ruben Silvera taking a tuck if he gets in the gate.
Right.
But, I mean, I don't know what to expect from Napoleon Solo, and I'm not willing to bet him, but I would presume we're going to see more speed from him for the inside with Paco in the saddle. So there's some speed to his inside. Talk to Me, Jimmy. You've got Minor Inconvenience, who I think at least will be a minor inconvenience for Talk to Me Jimmy. And then you've got Red Zone Runner to the outside, Butane with Martin Garcia, the Southern California speed. I mean, they didn't get into the race. A couple of these, they gotta try to go though. This horse with Martin, it's just not going to be an easy lead for anybody, I don't think, particularly Talk to Me Jimmy.
Yeah, and Iron Honor's on the outside, 13. He'll come out of the 12 hole with the 1 scratch. He essentially went wire to wire, and the Gotham pressed the pace going 6 in his debut. He's 2 for 2 for Chad Brown, son of Nyquist, but 26 and 2 the last quarter mile of the Gotham Stakes. How in the world are you going to stretch around 2 turns from the outside draw, giving ground on the first turn, if you're not going to run any faster to fourth quarter than 26 and 2? This race just is like begging for something to happen in here. The horses who have won on the local trail don't do it for me. The horses who are trying to rebound, I'm trying to figure out which one gets a rebound in this particular spot. I'm reaching in this place. You got the $5 million horse courting in here, the Fool de Clairiere by Curlin for Todd Pletcher, coming out of the Risen Star. They take the blinkers off, face Paladin in the last 2. He has been an underachiever. Butane's been an underachiever. Bravaro comes back off the Fountain of Youth. The 4th place finish in the Fountain of Youth kind of looks good compared to the rest of these. I know he was beating 11 lengths, but Commandment Chief Wallaby came back and ran well. We know Solitude Dude is a fast horse who ran 3rd in there. I'm almost apt, and I did in my Countdown to the Crown scouting report, Scott. I took Bravaro in here. I just think he's got better company lines. Safi adds blinkers. Safi a couple years ago upset this race with Lord Miles. This horse looks better than Lord Miles, and frankly, the rest of the field stinks to me. I can't come up with anybody that I like.
Well, he's a use for me because of the pace and the scenario, I think, and like you said, the running lines. But I like Oselli in here now. Caveat, he might be a really tough horse to ride or very unathletic. He has put himself in some tough spots, probably. When the trips start to continue to happen, you have to wonder. But I don't necessarily know if he's been in the well strung out field type deal where he can just sit and relax. I mean, last time he broke too well, and it put him in a tricky spot. He ran really well to finish 6th. Almost beaten 7 lengths because he was 4 wide the entire time, and it almost looked like if you watch the race, it looks a whole lot better than the running line does.
Right. Virginia Derby, we're talking about with Oselli, right?
Yeah, Virginia Derby. I'm sorry. Yeah. And prior to that, in the Sam F. Davis, I mean, I don't think he ran particularly well, but he was wide, and it was Renegade and the Puma in there, who I mean would be odds on in this spot. And before we just saw Regan's Honor wire out a field. So, and from an outside draw, I just think he hasn't had his best chance yet. Now the blinkers come off. Hopefully Ramos just sits back and makes one run, because if he does, I think I got the best finisher in the field.
You got a 5-race maiden who you can make a good case for in the Wood Memorial. That tells you what the field looks like, right? I mean, that's the, as you're handicapping, that maiden status will probably help you on the tote board a little bit. And the fact that Joe Ramos is the rider will probably help you a little bit on the tote board as well. So price-wise, you're probably in the right ballpark. And Whit Beckman looked at the Bluegrass, looked at this race, and decided this was the right spot for Oselli, and can't really argue with that decision.
No, I would have been really mad at Whit. I don't know him personally. I know people that do. I would have asked to get his digits to ask him what was going on. This is the spot. If he can't make a big run in this race, unless things change, compared to the way we see him on paper, this horse is not at the level, right? It's just time to.
One last note on the Wood Memorial. We didn't mention really much about Napoleon Solo at all, other than what he's going to do in terms of the pace from the inside. It's Paco Lopez from the rail. He's going to go, right? I mean, that's Paco. He's had Kendrick Carmouche on him prior. His big win in the Champagne, again, it was so fast early and then kind of slow late. We only saw him run the one time this year, backed up, but against Commandment and Chief Wallaby and Solitude Dude in that Fountain of Youth. Do we see Napoleon Solo getting back to that grade 1 winning form last year? He wouldn't shock me if he wins this race given the matchup, but I am not sold on him in the least bit. He was entered in the Arkansas Derby last week, supplemented to the race. Then they decided to come here, kind of duck the tougher competition. They found the easier in the right spot, but it's not a very confident move.
Yeah, and they, the lack of confidence in the spot, that they took. I like when they know where they're going with these horses early and often. Most of these guys do. Baffert may tell you that he's going to wait and see how the horse works, but he knows what game the plan A and plan B is. It just seems like they've been kind of, winging it. And then I really worry about how big he ran in those races and just coming back 6 months later and being, flat. He's probably the best. If he wins big in this race, it's by far the best result for the Wood Memorial heading into the Derby.
For sure.
I mean, there's not a lot of speed right now in the Derby. If he wires out this field somehow, he presents a whole new element, brings a whole new element to the race. So we'll see what happens. But he's not the kind of horse I wager on. Pretty much.
As I mentioned in Countdown, the last horse to win the Champagne and win the Wood Memorial. You want to take a shot?
The Champagne and the Wood. No, I have no idea.
New York's Easy Goer.
No,
1988-89 for him. And his two
that could have been an easier guess. I overthought that one. Oh, well.
Let's go from trivia to Santa Anita on Saturday. It's Santa Anita Derby Day at the Great Race Place. 4 stakes races we're going to handicap start in race number 4 with the Echo Eddie. Calbred, 6.5 furlong sprinters in here. And I know Scott's got one that he likes down on the rail. We don't have to go very far to find Galloping Ghost.
No, I put this on here. It's the lone state bred race. There's a lot to choose from, but it's a key race for me. It's the 4th leg of the early pick 5, which I like quite a bit. And it's a race that I think there could be some separation. All the horses, another race where I think all the horses are the main contenders in here that are going to take money. Most of them have speed, even though it's just 6 horses. The 3, 5, and 6, Tommy Norris, Sammy Davis. It sounds like a normal human names.
Yeah.
Here, Southern Melody. Thirsty Rebel is going to be the one that people try to get to close, but I'm not so sure he's a real closer. I know Galloping Ghost is. Last time out, he really broke through. He took money on debut the time before for a barn that rarely wins. Best finisher in the race, best jockey in the race.
You're saying the Candyman can't with Sammy Davis. You're going with Galloping Ghost.
Galloping Ghost now looming and looming menacingly. Here's that gray head of Galloping Ghost coming to Matt at 5. These two go on. One step beyond is under pressure. Matt at 5 on the inside, and Galloping Ghost come to the 8th pole together. Matt at 5, a very tough customer, just so close to that rail. Galloping Ghost on the outside puts his head in front. Matt at 5 will battle him all the way to the wire. Galloping Ghost gets the upper hand, and Galloping Ghost under Juan Hernandez wins it by 2. Matt at 5, a solid debut.
Stakes warm up in the Echo. Eddie, time to get serious at Santa Anita with the graded stakes. We'll go next to race number 6. It's the Santa Anita Oaks. Kentucky Oaks is really going to get the picture sharpened this weekend. The Ashland at Keeneland coming up today on Friday. Santa Anita Oaks on Saturday. Scott, the best in the West, might be meaning. She beat Explora last time out in the Las Virgenes. Does she repeat?
I think she does. Now, whether I think she's going to win the Kentucky Oaks, that remains to be seen. She got a good setup last time. I know some think Explorer is a little bit underwhelming. I thought she was the better horse that day and got the worst trip. But, I mean, she's not in here, first off, right? And then second off, and I don't necessarily think the Santa Isabel was a very good race. The inside 3 are all coming out of the Santa Isabel. So they all have, they all show some sort of speed as well. I think she's just going to sit a perfect trip as the best horse. Kind of a tall task to beat her. Won't rush to the window to bet on her. And thank you, Santa Anita, for making it race number 6, the perfect spot to not need to even use it involved in the horizontals. Not telling you not to bet it, but but for me, meaning's going to get over bet, and it's by far the likeliest winner.
She's won 2 of 3 to date. Her only loss in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies won 4th. Let's take a look at her last time out. Las Virgenes winner, Meaning.
Pressure, and Meaning is the one to beat at the top of the stretch. Explorer has to battle back. These two have put away Super Corridor as they come to the 8th pole. Meaning and Flavian Pratt on the outside. Explorer and Juan Hernandez trying their best. Another 3. Bank Shot takes 3rd. It's Meaning and Explorer, nose and nose coming for the wire. Meaning is the up-and-comer, and Meaning wins the Las Virgenes by a length and a half over Explorer.
One to watch in here, I think, is Hypergamy. She's got a lot of experience. She's got 8 races under her belt, all in the same form cycle. And Doug O'Neill's kind of becoming like the D. Wayne Lucas. You can't win unless you're in some of these races, and he's willing to put horses in. We saw Robusta and some others earlier in the 3-year-old Cold Trail get big pieces of major stakes because he's willing to give them a shot in there. I think Hypergamy's run well on the turf. Misial Jaramillo's had a really good first meet out at Santa Anita, having a fantastic run. I give Hypergamy a shot in here. She's definitely going to be fit, I mean, she's legged up. She's deep into her form cycle. She's run a bunch of 2-turn races. Yeah, they're all on grass. She's by American Pharoah, who's actually probably been a better turf sire than dirt, but I wouldn't see why she can't run on the dirt. I'm going to give Hypergamy a shot in there if you're going for an upset.
Yeah, that's an interesting horse. You go turf to dirt, trying the dirt for the first time. It's interesting because if you look at the pedigree, the American Pharoah, I would totally agree about the turf part, but Shane's girlfriend was a horse, same exact connections, and named after Dennis O'Neill, who's Doug's brother's son, Shane, who's very much into horse racing. Anyway, this horse won her first 2 starts on turf. On dirt by a combined 19 lengths. So it's interesting that they never even tried the dirt so far.
No.
So maybe this is the right spot. You're going to get the right price.
From the Santa Anita Oaks, we go to the Derby. Santa Anita Derby, race number 10. Storied history of this race. The Sunday Silence and the winning colors. And, of course, Justify coming through here before winning the Triple Crown in 2018. Mile and an eighth for this year's Santa Anita Derby. Plutarch was one of the top 3-year-olds on the grounds. He's sidelined, but fear not for Bob Baffert. He just had a horse step right up at that point when Cherokee Nation last time out introduced himself as a serious contender, Scott. He's a maiden through 5 starts. In his 6th career start, though, he drew off and won by 10 that day. What kind of Cherokee Nation are we getting? I get a further ado feel with Cherokee Nation in the Santa Anita Derby. Is he the horse who blew out, but the maidens by 10? Or is he the horse we saw in Stakes Company run kind of to the pack with some of the others? I don't know what to make of him. He's got stakes experience. He steps back up into the stakes ranks as a different horse than he was the last time he was in a stakes. I really don't know what to do with Cherokee Nation.
It is one of the tougher reads and throughout the Derby prep season thus far. This is a horse that if he runs back or close to his last race, he's a major player, not only here, obviously, he'll win this race, but he will be a major player come Derby time, Kentucky Derby time. Right. So it's a tough question to answer here. And I mean, you have to know his ceiling is high, but obviously, you know, it's hard to make the case that he just figured it out over a 20-day period.
Right.
To me,
in between, he had 1 5 furlong work in 102. Between going from very normal 70s buyers to running 100 and romping by 10 with only a 102 work in between, which for Bob Baffert is like on a sundial, right? I mean, his 5 furlong works are 58, 59s. And so you couldn't have seen it coming last time.
No, I picked him, you know, at 6-5, so I saw it coming. But no,
I mean, he was dropping.
No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. That was
you could see the victory coming, but the fashion in which and the speed in which he won.
No, it was a terrible. I do want to make the point that was a really poor field. Winston Avenue runs in the 3rd race, I think, on this card, on the undercard. Go check him out. I mean, he's going to be the favorite, I hope, because I don't think he's very much horse at all for Bob, the 4-year-old. You know, the field was poor. That builds confidence in a horse. Maybe it carries over. Maybe, you know, because he was in good fields other than that, you know, prior to that, even the maiden races. Always at least one good horse in those races, if not more. So that's the thing. But he's not the kind of horse I would bet. I know that he's listed as the second choice. I'd be shocked if he's 5-2 on Saturday.
No, I think he's going to be the favorite, and I think he's going to the front. They've been working him in company on the inside of rivals. In fact, they work on the inside of Potente in company. You put Florent Giroux aboard, who's a speed jock. You've got the rail. And when Bob Baffert thinks he has the best horse in the race, there's just no doubt they're going. So I think Cherokee Nation goes to the front in this particular spot. I thought Potente worked a little easier, the two, watching the two work visually between them. But Cherokee Nation, the intent of going to the front, I think is what we're going to see from him. Potente probably sits somewhere. So Happy's going to be up near the pace in here, coming out of a pressing trip in the San Felipe when he was up near the front. But they've been trying to get him to relax. In fact, the last time So Happy worked on video that I saw, he started about 10 lengths behind his workmate. I mean, they're really trying to get him to relax here from Mark Glatt. I didn't think he finished up all that great in that particular move, so I don't think he's working that well. He was asked last time in a work, and it really had no gallop out. I don't think So Happy can get the distance. I think they're better off trying to just go with speed, but I think they're trying to coach the 1 1/8 into him, and I don't see that as a positive scenario. Intrepido is a horse who is a 2-turn horse, though, and we know his form. He won the American Pharoah here last fall at 1 1/16. He's already a Grade 1 winner. Second start of his form cycle is where I identified him as a horse to watch when he won his second start at Del Mar. He stretched out to a mile that day. It's now the second start of his form cycle for 2026 after a pretty good effort in the Bob Lewis on the comeback. I think he's set for a move forward. Let's go back to that last race. Here's Intrepido, second in the Lewis, behind Plutarch, who's since been sidelined.
Going with him, Plutarch just in front at the top of the stretch. Intrepido's trying his best, but a half length behind. 4 more lengths to Desert Gate in third, and then Robusta coming to the 16th pole, and it's Plutarch and a very game Intrepido who will not surrender. Plutarch has him though, and it's Plutarch to win the Robert B. Lewis by a length. Intrepido was second. Secured Freedom rallied late for third. Going with him.
Now, as for Intrepido, he's had a couple workouts since that race. You don't get a great feel watching the Jeff Mullins horses work. I'll tell you, some of them are in the dark. Some of them are kind of like lackadaisical efforts. He doesn't ask a ton of his horses in the morning. So like Chad Brown, very difficult to read these horses in the morning, moving from A to B. But in his running lines, if Intrepido improves as much from first start to second in his form cycle as he did last year, I think that puts him in the winner's circle.
He's who I like as well. Maybe I'm maybe my bearishness on Potente is unfair. Bob, a good friend of mine, great handicapper out west. He's been winning contests. Bob Ike told me I was yesterday after reading my article. We usually agree on stuff, so we'll see what plays out. I just haven't been impressed with the two fields he's beaten at all. I thought that San Felipe was very underwhelming, and that field he beat is full of maidens still prior to that. Intrepido is my horse as well. So hopefully me and JP have a big day Saturday celebrating Derby picks, because I don't think he's going to get a different trip than he did last time. He was down towards the inside. It ended up being an inside trip because he broke well and was the inside speed. I think coming second back off the bench instead of first, he'll be a little less keen. Outside draw, Hector Berrios will have a plan to stalk just off, maybe even try a little bit further off. I don't know. Right. This is again. I think the theme for me is trying to find the best finisher, I guess, in these mile and an eighth races that are going to pave the way towards the Kentucky Derby.
I think we're going to be third choice in there with Intrepido. I think Cherokee Nation goes favored. Potente and maybe co-second choice. Might be around the exact same odds with Potente in there. So you're probably not looking at anything huge. Maybe 5-2, 3-1. There's going to be a clump of those three horses and then a gap to them.
9-5, 5-2, 3-1 would be it. My
yeah. So we're in that 5-2, 3-1 range probably with Intrepido in there. Let's go to the Monrovia Stakes as we wrap up the card. Jeff Mullins won 3 straight Santa Anita Derbies back in the early 2000s. We're hoping he hits back-to-back on this card coming up on Saturday because not only does he have the horse we like, Intrepido, in the Santa Anita Derby, but then right back in the Monrovia. Queen Maxima, boy, she is so good as a turf sprinter.
She really is. And, sometimes I get worried in these hillside races being on the rail. Always I do. It's never ideal to be down on the inside in these races. She answered that kind of question last time off the layoff in the Las Anengas. And the best, her main competition on paper, I'm not worried about any of the, unless she has a terrible trip, I'm not worried about any of the horses that she's already beaten. I think the 2 horses coming in from out of town are Spirited Boss and Love Appeals. And I am not backing either of those barns right now, shipping out, because they're not even winning well at their normal pace or close locally. And that's Jose D'Angelo on Spirited Boss. And more importantly, the 3, the second choice Love Appeals, Miguel Clement not having a very good winter after really having an awesome summer.
Tirapati is interesting to me. Layoff, turning back in distance for Jonathan Thomas barn. Big numbers out in California with his string this year on the turf. Comes back, shortens, goes down the hill. Sometimes these milers who have speed at Santa Anita are perfect for down the hill. Went wire to wire in the Wilshire last year. Long layoff. We'll see if Tirapati can be the horse maybe behind Queen Maxima. But she just doesn't lose on this turf course. She's won 5 of 6.
Queen Maxima is up to take the lead coming to the furlong pole. Behind them, Egyptian Mao is in third. They are followed by Spicy Bug, Miss Lizzie on the extreme outside. Queen Maxima is strutting her stuff past the 16th pole. And another terrific display from Queen Maxima to win the Las Ciénegas under Juan Hernandez.
Hopefully they just stay in the winner's circle after the Santa Anita Derby to watch Queen Maxima, and those Dutch girl holding silks will come home for us in both the final 2 races on the card at the Great Race Place. That's going to wrap up our handicapping for Santa Anita Derby Day and this big weekend of Kentucky Derby preps. Again, $10 money back special. If your win bet finishes 2nd or 3rd in the Santa Anita Derby, the Bluegrass at Keeneland, or the Wood Memorial at Aqueduct, all 3 of those races, the $10 money back special in play this weekend. Scott, final word as we head into the opening at Keeneland as well.
Yeah, looking forward to finding out that Derby field almost, to a T minus the defections and minor changes. We're going to learn a lot more on Saturday, and I'm always looking forward to that. Saturday being tomorrow, could even be today, depending on when you're listening to this.
We'll be back next Friday to preview the Lexington Stakes and the week at Keeneland with a couple big turf races scheduled there as well. But between now and then, enjoy Santa Anita Derby weekend.